And the beauty of it is that not only did he generate that into a business that he could then sell for 300k, but if he chose not to, he could just extract £10,000 profit per month from the business.
So, Lewis, firstly, what options are there out there for people who have come into a lump sum? What options do they have to generate a sustainable income stream?
So typically there might be a few different reasons why somebody's come into a lump sum of cash, a windfall type payment, and they might be things as simple as redundancy, taking redundancy from an employer, or it might be that you had a business previously that you then sold and now you have this kind of lump sum of money that you want to do something with, get your money working for you. Other things might be that you've sold a property and now you don't want to invest it straight into another property, but you maybe want to consider your options with that lump sum of cash. Could even be things like work bonuses or inheritance from a family member. So lots of different ways. Or even if it's just you've saved up a pot of money and it wasn't a lump sum payment, it's just that you now have a good amount of cash that you've saved diligently over time and now you want to do something with it. So there are a few different options that people would usually go to when they have a lump sum of cash at their disposal like this. The first would be investing in property. So that would be the kind of traditional, like put your money in bricks and mortar route that a lot of people would take. The next would be investing in more traditional investments. So things like stock market, stocks and shares, things like that. And then the third, and the one we'll probably focus on most today because it's our area of expertise, is launching a business, right? So whether that means actually buying a business that's already been launched by somebody and getting a bit of a head start, perhaps, or using the money that you have to fund the launch of your own business. So a good example of this is a friend of mine who I met while I was traveling abroad. I met him and he was running a high-ticket dropshipping business using the model that we talk about today. And I asked him how he got started with that. And he said, I actually bought the business. And so kind of dug a bit deeper into his circumstances. And he said he had been in a high-paying job previously, had taken a payout of whatever it was, like 120,000 or something, and had decided to put 60 of that into buying a early stage dropshipping business that was using the high ticket domestic dropshipping approach. And it was already up and running, right? So I think it was making like maybe £2,000 net profit per month, right? And oftentimes these businesses will sell for something like a 30 times monthly profit multiple. So business making £2,000 net profit per month, sells for 60k, he goes in and buys it, right, for that. Now he knew that he could have probably just started his own store and not spent that 60,000, but it might have taken him a little bit of time to get there. It might have been a bit more of a slog. He'd have to hustle to really like grow it, put a lot of time in. And he was traveling, he was living abroad. He wanted to relax and enjoy his time. He had the money at his disposal. So he thought, well, why don't I just take a proven business that's already working? Someone else has put in the initial groundwork to do because they had a lot of time, but maybe not so much money. And then he could supercharge that and take it to the next level. So people think that you buy a business for £60,000 and it would then take you, say, 30 months before you would realize that investment back, right? 30 months of 2,000 per month is going to get you back your 60,000. However, what that fails to consider is what do you do with the business once you take it over? He knew that if he had put some time into it, say he invested in some mentorship, some training, he could definitely get that from 2k per month up to £10,000 net profit per month, right? So it wasn't long before he did that, just by things like increasing the conversion rate on the store, on the product page, or optimizing the page speed, or signing a few more suppliers, or, negotiating slightly better profit margins with existing suppliers, maybe adding in a few upsells and cross sales and things like that here and there. Now, say that he got it up to £10,000 profit per month. I don't know the exact numbers, but just, hypothetically, say he got it to that point after 6 months of working on it, which isn't unfeasible at all. That store, using the same multiple that he bought it for, would now be worth £300,000, 30 times the monthly net profit of £10,000, right? So the people who say he's crazy putting £60,000 into a business that he could have just started himself, well, he's 5x'd his investment in under a year if he's done that, that you're not going to get those kinds of returns in the stock market unless you take a huge amount of risk. The reality is when he bought that business, he could have done nothing and still just earned his money back over 30 months. But he decided to invest in himself, go into a mentorship program, get coaching, get consulting, learn how he could make it better. And the beauty of it is that not only did he generate that into a business that he could then sell for 300k, but if he chose not to, he could just extract £10,000 profit per month from the business, continue to run it, have it fund his lifestyle. And also he'd have the skills that he invested in to make the business again in the future if he decided to do it from scratch or invest in another one. So, you can just see why, whether you put your money into property or the stock market, or you choose to invest it into launching or even buying your own business, you have full control over increasing the value of the business if that's the option that you choose. And obviously you then have those skills for life as well. So it's worth considering all your options, but I certainly know which I would go for.
Interesting. It's an inspirational story. It illustrates perfectly the opportunity that you have if you do have a lump sum of cash. Clearly, he made, theoretically £240,000 in a year, but he started with £60,000. So there's opportunities out there that you can get to the next level quite quickly if you have a lump sum of cash already to invest. So I heard a stat recently that I'd like to share, because I heard that 88% of millionaires in the US did not actually have a windfall of cash. So they became millionaires off their own back. So that's great news for everyone else if you haven't got a windfall of cash, that the majority of millionaires don't have that to start with. But at the same time, what that does show is if you do have a windfall of cash, clearly you have an advantage over so many other people that make it anyway. So you should use that and really start to think about how you can use that opportunity in the best way that you possibly can. So clearly there are options for people to have a think about if they have this lump sum of cash. And a quick reminder that obviously we're not investment professionals or financial advisors. So for your specific circumstances, we would recommend that you seek specific advice. However, we can certainly go through the options and the considerations that you might have before deciding where to go with that lump sum of cash. So, Lewis, we've talked about the three options. What would you say are the pros and cons of each of those options?
Yeah, each of them have their own benefits and drawbacks. So, I mean, starting a business provides you with control over your income, right? It provides you with a high earning potential, but it does require that initial time input, that effort that you need to put in, especially if you're building the business up from scratch. Or from a very low, say you buy it for a low amount and you want to really increase that profit, you are going to need to put in some time. And of course, with business entails risk. Not to say that the other two options don't entail risk, but of course, all three of them, there is an element of risk that you have to consider. With property investment, it can certainly, again, provide a nice stable income stream through rent and, potential capital growth over time. If that's something that you want to look at, that's not necessarily the case for all stretches of history. But over a long enough time frame, then properties usually will go up in price, right? But it requires a significant upfront investment, usually, unless you're going to go into it highly leveraged, in which case you're then at the disposal or the mercy of rising interest rates and lending rates and things like that. So it's obviously that's a consideration, not to mention the ongoing costs and potential property market downturns overall in terms of price fluctuations at the capital level, but also in terms of like ongoing considerations, stresses, being woken up in the middle of the night because of a leaking pipe or a problem that your tenants report with the property or something that, there's it's not like it's a fully passive model when you do that, unless you decide to get it managed. But even so, we've talked about this before, just getting it managed, the buck still stops with you. Ultimately, they're going to still come back to you, whoever's managing it, if there's a problem you need to fix. And if there's no tenant there, then, you've got no one to pay the rent anyway. So that's a consideration. None of these things are kind of, an answer to everything. Investing in the stock market, it can yield high returns over a long term if the market conditions are favorable. It's, of course, subject to market volatility. And I think my view on investments in the stock market has changed significantly over the last few years, down to a few key books that I read.